What's up, smart homers? My name's Aaron, and in this video, we're going to take a look at a wide variety of products from a single smart home brand. These guys are the newest members of the Works with Home Assistant program. They are Apollo Automation. We've done this kind of video in the past where we go over a particular brand and kind of get an idea of what they stand for by looking at their products. And this one has been a long time coming as one of my favorite brands of all time when it comes to smart home tech. In this video, we'll briefly cover what each one of their devices does and how it works with Home Assistant. To be transparent, Apollo Automation did send me every single one of these products, but they didn't ask me to make a video, they didn't tell me anything I should say about it, and they did not ask to see any video ahead of time. You're getting my honest take on these products. Let's start with the Apollo Automation Air 1. The Air 1 is a compact air quality monitor designed for seamless integration with Home Assistant via ESP Home. The Air 1 connects over Wi-Fi, runs completely locally with no cloud, no subscription or anything like that. It's powered by USB-C and it's pretty compact for everything it has in it, so it's really inconspicuous. You can stick that on your counter, on your desk, something like that, and it'll blend right in. Inside, the main SEN 55 sensor measures particulate matter, which is PM1, PM2.5, PM4, and PM10. Along with VOCs, and don't ask me to say what that stands for because it's a tongue twister for me, and also nitrous oxides, temperature, and humidity. A GPIO expansion header allows for adding other modules like a CO2 monitoring sensor or an MICS gas sensor that detects things like carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and ammonia. Besides sensors, this thing has 3 built-in RGB LED pixels, and these can be used for visual alerts. So you could, for example, have those pixels turn red when the air quality dips too low, or even use it to let you know if your door is left open or you got mail. The automation power of Home Assistant is at your disposal once you've connected this thing. As with all their stuff, this isn't meant for lab-grade accuracy. If you want that, you can spend a lot more money, but it's great for a local privacy-first smart home. To connect this thing to Home Assistant, all you gotta do is power it up via USB-C, and it's gonna broadcast a wireless access point, which you just connect to. And then if you type in 192.168.4.1 into your web browser on your phone, it'll bring up a little landing page where you can select your Wi-Fi network, put in your Wi-Fi credentials, and it's going to connect to your Wi-Fi. And once it's connected there, it'll be auto-discovered in Home Assistant. In Home Assistant, you get a ton of different sensors. As I mentioned, you get a button to calibrate the SCUD40 sensor, a button to clean the SEN 55 sensor, and then you have a toggle for the RGB light. And below that, you have a sensor for ammonia, carbon monoxide, CO2, air pressure, ethanol, hydrogen, methane, nitrogen dioxide, and a lot of these are available only if you have the gas sensor add-on, so they'll just show as unknown if you don't have that. Also, you have the particulate matter sensors that I mentioned already, humidity, temperature, VOCs, and then you have a configuration section where you can adjust offsets for certain sensors. That's a ton of sensors. Next, we have their MTR1, which is a nice compact multi-target millimeter wave radar sensor. Again, this device works locally with Home Assistant via ESP Home. The MTR1 can track up to 3 people at one time across 3 zones, giving you precise motion and presence data instead of just motion detected like you get with a standard PIR motion sensor. It's powered by USB-C and runs on an ESP32C3, so it's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capable. It also has a few other sensors under the hood for temperature, pressure, brightness, and UV, and you can actually expand it with the CO2 add-on for environmental monitoring. You even get an RGB LED on the board as well, and you can use it just like the RGB pixels on the Air 1. But even cooler, you get a piezo buzzer so you can have audible notifications as well out of this little device. That is so cool. The zone-based tracking will let you create automations based on if a target is in a certain area in its field of view, which is really cool for zone-based automations. And the environmental sensing is just the icing on the cake. You connect this thing to Wi-Fi just like you do with the Air 1, and then you can add it to Home Assistant as it'll be automatically discovered. In Home Assistant, again, you get a ton of controls. You have the option to calibrate your SCUD40 if you do have that CO2 add-on. You have the toggle for the RGB light. Then you have a CO2 sensor if, of course, you have that add-on. You have air pressure and temperature sensors. You have light sensor, as I mentioned, and a UV sensor. Then you have a moving target count, which tells you how many moving targets there are, how many targets are present, how many targets are not moving, and a bunch of sensors for specific targets. So target 1, you can look at the angle, direction, distance, resolution, speed, and X and Y distance from the sensor of each individual target, which is crazy. Further down in the configuration section, you can see that there are options for turning on multi-target tracking and Bluetooth, updating firmware, all that stuff, temperature offsets. And there's also boxes to specify the coordinates or the area of different zones. And you can actually set zones with a really cool tool that Apollo Automation rolled out recently, which allows you to specify zones in space. And then Home Assistant will tell you how many targets are in those zones. Next, we have the Apollo MSR2, which is a refresh on their original MSR1. We've already covered the MTR1, which is for tracking multiple targets with the radar sensor in here. This one has an LD2410B millimeter wave sensor, and this is meant for a longer distance and for detecting still presence. Like if someone is sleeping, this can pick up you breathing. It includes a built-in LD2410B millimeter wave radar for presence detection, and it has a lux and UV sensor, temperature and pressure sensors, and an optional CO2 sensor like the other one. The radar module has a maximum detection range of about 6 meters and only single target tracking, but it's tuned for better detection of still objects, like if someone's laying there just breathing in their sleep, rather than tracking a fast-moving target. This device also has a built-in RGB pixel as well, so it can provide those visual alerts, and it has the piezo buzzer in it as well, which is just an extra feature that why not throw it in there, I guess, sure. In a previous video, I actually made this one play the Lion King theme song for my kids because they were really into the Lion King at that time. This thing is powered by USB-C just like the MTR1, and you connect this thing to Wi-Fi and Home Assistant just like the other devices we've covered. What I really love about this sensor is the optional wall wart mount, which comes with the wall wart, but also the special custom-made USB-C adapter that allows you to mount the presence sensor directly to the wall wart and plug it right in, so you don't need to worry about cables at all. In Home Assistant, you get the option to calibrate the CO2 sensor again if you have that optional sensor. And again, you'll have a CO2 sensor entity, which will just be unknown if you didn't buy that option. And then you have entities for air pressure, air temperature, light level, UV index, and then you have some info about the radar itself. So you have radar detection distance, radar move energy, radar moving distance, a bunch of these. And you can play with them all and use them for different triggers and automations. You have a temperature offset entity, and then down in the section, you have the ability to adjust the threshold, the sensitivity of all of these gates, G0 through G8. These gates each represent distances away from your radar sensor, and you adjust the threshold so that you're not picking up some movement that is minor, like if a fan in another room is shaking the wall, you can even pick that up with a sensor. So this kind of helps you dial that in so you're only picking up true presence. I covered this sensor in a different video as well, so it's worth checking that out. I'll leave a link in the description. Okay, so next we have a fairly new device, and I think this is really cool. It's their R Pro 1, which is a PoE monster multi-millimeter wave sensor. I don't even know what to call it. It's built around a 24 gigahertz LD2450 radar, which does the multi-target detection, but it also comes with an optional LD2412. The R Pro 1 combines the technology from both of these types of radar to give you the best of both worlds. The 2450 detects motion up to 6 meters away and can track multiple targets simultaneously, but the optional LD2412 extends range to 9 meters and focuses on single target tracking with fine-tuned sensitivity for detecting still or resting individuals, like if someone's sleeping or lying down. This combo is perfect for full room presence detection. The R Pro 1 also has that lux and UV sensor and does have an optional CO2 sensor if you want to add that. Apollo also sells this gang box mount kit and a ceiling mount kit, so you can actually mount this up in your ceiling looking down at a room, or you can mount it in a gang box on the wall. Since it's a radar sensor, it can see right through thin layers of plastic, no problem, so it can detect presence while being covered. I really love the ceiling mount. It's practically invisible, and combined with PoE power, this thing is just awesome. Of course, if you do mount it in the gang box behind a gang plate or in the ceiling with their ceiling mount, you will be covering the front so that lux sensor and UV sensor aren't going to work too well. The R Pro one comes with a little 3D printed like base thing that pretty much props it up like a stand. Adding this to Home Assistant, there's a couple ways. One is to plug it in via USB-C. It's going to broadcast an AP and you connect it that way. And the other way is to plug this bad boy right into an Ethernet cable into your network switch, and it'll be connected to your network automatically. In Home Assistant, you get an RGB light entity, and then you get a bunch of the sensors for the LD2450 and LD2412 sensors. So you have the target tracking as well as some presence detection. The 2412 works similarly to the MSR2 and allows you to adjust the sensitivity at different gates so you don't pick up minute movements. For example, maybe there's a fan that in a different room that's shaking a wall a tiny bit. You don't want to pick that up. Once again, you have zone definition for the different zones, but we won't get into that. This thing is just packed. Having 2 millimeter wave sensors is crazy to me, and it's really cool that you can fine tune them just the way you want. It's so complex, it would take like 3 videos to cover it. Next, we have the PLT1, which is a plant multi-sensor. They have both the PLT1 and the PLT1B, and the difference is one is battery powered and one is USB-C powered. It's a compact indoor plant multi-sensor that measures soil moisture via a capacitive probe, along with air temperature, humidity, ambient light, and UV levels. There's an optional DS18B20 waterproof soil temperature probe that you can plug into it, and that'll measure the root zone temperature so you can really monitor your plant's health if you want to get all nerdy into that. Like I mentioned, there are 2 versions. The one is the battery powered version and the one is the USB-C version. And the PLT1B, the battery version, takes an 18650 battery, and so obviously has to be a bit bigger. You can actually configure the update intervals of this device so that the battery will last longer if that's something you want to do. To top off all of this plant sensing, they both also have a piezo buzzer and an RGB pixel so you can get audio and visual notifications. Because why not? They throw that in on everything. Anyway, adding this thing to Home Assistant works with ESP Home, so it's the same as the rest of the ESP Home devices. In Home Assistant, we get an RGB light entity, we get air humidity, air temperature, light level, and UV index, and then we get soil moisture and soil temperature. There are some configuration entities that will allow you to do some fine tuning of the different sensors so that they're accurate if you have a standard that you want them to match. Very cool device, and I'll be using this to monitor the health of some plants in my house. Next, we have the Pump 1, and this is of course a compact smart pump that you can use for plant watering, pet bowls, fish tanks, and more. It has a DSP-413A pump module inside it, which runs on 5-volt DC power, and it's compatible with most standard USB power sources. According to their testing, it can push water through 33 feet of tubing with up to 14 feet of lift, giving a flow rate of about 900 milliliters per minute, which is pretty impressive. It uses 7mm ID by 10mm OD tubing, which they did provide, and is made from food-safe materials, so it's safe for even things like pumping beverages. That being said, I'm not sure that's what I would use it for. It includes ports for 2 external fluid level sensors, so it can automatically stop when a bottle or tank is empty or a container is full, and be controlled by button or fully automated through a smart home setup. Now, I did test this thing out, pumping some green dyed water through it, and it worked surprisingly well, but the water level sensors that are supposed to detect water through the side of the bottle they sent us didn't seem to work super well, which I'm not exactly sure why. Anyway, in Home Assistant, you have the option to set how long the pump will run for when it's triggered to run, and that kind of allows you to adjust how much water your plants are getting if you're watering plants, things like that. It also has an RGB light LED entity and then a button entity for running the pump. It has the sensors for fluid input and fluid output. And like I mentioned before, there are also a couple configuration entities that I think are important. One is to stop the pump when the input is dry. The other is to stop when the output is wet, which is really cool. Okay, so next we have something that's different, but you love to see it. And this is the Apollo Automation M1. It's a high performance LED matrix controller with Hub 75 panel that supports 4096 pixels or 64 by 64. It's powered via a dedicated 5-volt 3-amp controller that comes pre-flashed with WLED, and it's actually running a custom audio reactive version of WLED, allowing sound reactive effects, pixel art, and a bunch of other things. One thing to note though, you can't just reflash it with stock WLED firmware. Because it uses a special fork of WLED, you need to use a special flasher tool to flash the latest firmware. To add this thing to Home Assistant, all you got to do is power the controller, and once the controller is powered, it's going to broadcast a wireless access point, and you're going to connect to that, and you put in the IP address 4321, and then you go into the settings and you'll set up your network credentials, and then you're good to go. The device will now be on your Wi-Fi, and you can access either the WLED app or you can go through Home Assistant, because WLED devices will automatically be discovered in Home Assistant. I found this device pretty fun. You can make some really cool pixel art. They even show you in the documentation a pixel art generator that you can use that will generate the pixel art and then send it over your network to the device. And then you can save that pixel art as a preset and you'll never lose it, which is really cool. They also have a lot of built-in LED matrix effects, which are pretty cool, and I can spend hours just staring at these things. But I've made whole videos on LED matrices and WLED, so this is nothing new if you've watched those videos. You can actually hook up to 4 different matrices together to make a really huge matrix using these little cables that connect them one to the other, and then also these little power modules that they provide. You'll need a USB-C cable for power for each of the modules as well as the controller. But once you have those, you can make a really cool sign or whatever with multiple of them together. Here you can see that I have 3 of them all connected together and it looks really awesome. Next, back to some ESP home devices, we have a temperature sensor, and this is called the Temp 1. Now, there are actually 2 versions of this sensor, the Temp 1 and the Temp 1B. And if you couldn't guess, Temp 1B uses a battery while the Temp 1 is USB-C powered. It's used to monitor air temperature and humidity using an onboard AHT20-F sensor and supports optional external probes like food-safe probes or probes used for measuring temperature in water and things like that. Optional probes include a 1.5 meter DS8B20 flat cable probe. This works from -55 to 85 C, and then there's a 20 centimeter sensor of the same type, or there's a 1 meter stainless steel food safe NTC grill probe that you can use for your grill or oven, which allows you to measure up to 204 Celsius. Like so many of the devices that we've seen already, it has a built-in RGB pixel and a piezo buzzer. Like I mentioned before, the Temp 1B is just a slightly larger version, and that allows it to fit a battery, and you are able to adjust the reporting time of the sensor to preserve that battery life. You add this thing to Home Assistant just like all the other ESP home devices we've talked about. And in Home Assistant, you get a bunch of different entities. You get an alarm outside temperature range control, so you can turn that on if you want it to sound an alarm. You get an RGB light entity, which controls that RGB pixel. You get a temp probe select, where you can select which type of temperature probe you're using. And then you have some sensors on the board itself, board humidity, board temperature. And then you have food probe and temperature probe temperatures, as those are the auxiliary sensors that you can connect. In the configuration section, there are offset boxes where you can set different temperature offsets and things like that. But that's pretty much the gist of it. Really cool little temperature sensor. Okay, now we want to look at another really unique device of theirs, and that is their BTN1, which is a macro deck, I guess you call it. It's essentially a compact set of 4 Cherry MX compatible hot swappable mechanical switches with LED lights on the board. It has a port on the side which supports a variety of attachments like additional buttons, rotary dials, OLED screens, LED matrices, and more. And it can be powered by USB-C, or you can get a special battery for it that connects to a small connector on the back side of the board. Again, it's Wi-Fi based, so it runs on ESP Home. And in Home Assistant, you can see that you get toggles for the LED lights that are on the board. There's also a battery level sensor and battery voltage sensor, which really don't do anything unless you have an actual battery. And then it has a bunch of sensors for the buttons themselves. Each time you press one of the buttons, it will sense that a button has been pressed, and you can use those sensors to trigger automations. When you press button 1 sensor says it's been pressed, and that can trigger an automation. Lastly, let's look at something that's totally different when it comes to smart home devices. And I think this is like the first company I've seen do this, and it's really cool. In 2024, Apollo Automation released a special smart holiday ornament that combines festive fun with charitable giving. It's called the H2, and it was designed to bring holiday cheer with 3 classic songs and synchronized LED effects right out of the box. All proceeds from its sales went directly to a local charity near them, which I think is a really nice gesture, especially this time of year. This year, Apollo Automation followed up with the H2. And instead of being shaped like a tree, this one's shaped like a snowflake. It's an upgraded ornament featuring more built-in holiday songs, more RGB LEDs, and a power switch, which I really like. The H2 sales support both that local charity that they chose, but also the Open Home Foundation, the champions of privacy, choice, and sustainability in the open source smart home community. Like I said, the H1 is a Christmas tree shaped PCB ornament that comes preloaded with Jingle Bells, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Let It Snow, and it has special lighting effects to go along with each song using its 22 LEDs. Songs can be activated without any smart home setup by pressing the gold button on the back, using single press, double press, or long press actions, making it fully functional right out of the box. While it does work standalone, you can connect it to Home Assistant because it's running ESP Home, and you can customize the songs, customize the lighting effects, and it's pretty cool. It can be powered by USB-C, but also by a 16340 battery, so it'll stay powered while it's on your tree. The H2 expands on that original design, but this time it's shaped like a snowflake, and instead of only 3 songs, it has 4. Each mapped to its own dedicated button on the back of the device. Like the H1, it operates as a standalone ornament right out of the box, but if you connect it to Home Assistant, it's an ornament on steroids. Again, once you connect it, you can customize lighting effects and tunes, automate the playback, and use it with your bigger holiday scenes and automations. You can either power it with USB-C power or also a battery, just like the H1. Just looking at the H2 for now in Home Assistant, you can see that it has a toggle for the logo light. Yes, the logo is lit up with LEDs. It has the 4 song button presses in software form. So if you don't want to press a physical button, you could press it in Home Assistant. It has an RGB light toggle, which toggles all of the LEDs that are on the rest of the snowflake. And then it has a volume slider for that piezo buzzer, which is so cool. Anyway, it also has battery level and battery voltage if you're using battery. And then it has sensors to know if song 1, song 2, song 3, or song 4 have been triggered. So you can say that when the song gets triggered, also do this in an automation in Home Assistant. Further on down there, you're actually able to dial in the specific tunes. And I won't get into that, but there's a whole background on how to set tunes with piezo buzzers. It's really cool. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this one. I hope this video, short as it is, has given you an idea of their efforts when it comes to a private and local smart home. Not only are they making every single device able to connect with Home Assistant without any need for cloud connectivity, they never ask you to log into anything to create a cloud account for anything, and their holiday ornaments are supporting the Open Home Foundation. What an awesome smart home brand, and well deserving of being brought into the Works with Home Assistant partner program. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you found it interesting, if you want to see more brand type videos, let me know in the comments, hit the like button, and get subscribed to see more videos when they do come out. I acknowledge it's been a long time since my last video came out, but trust me, there's quite a bit more in the pipeline, including some UniFi stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. See ya.